It'll always be freedom. It'll always be freedom.
Welcome to Conversations in Anarchy. My name is Laura and I'm your host today. From 31st of May to 1st of June, Anarchapulco is presenting Non-Conformist Series. And there are going to be 13 plus speakers with their hands-on approach to challenges we face in life. So check it out on anarchapulco.com and get your tickets there. And today I have the pleasure and honor to talk to one of the speakers that's going to be present on Non-Conformist Series. Pyasa, welcome.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
So Pyasa, please tell to those that don't know you so well, or those that have known you some time ago, but maybe are not exactly updated, or what is your life today?
My life and my work?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I'm speaking to you right now from Peru, from the Sacred Valley of Peru. I've been living in South and Central America for the last 15 years, and my work is around healing the nervous system, facilitating somatic therapy, and working with psychedelics. I'm also, my background, as many people probably know, is a somatic sexologist. But over the years, since I've been involved with Anarchapulco, my work has really been evolving. And so I help people to find embodiment and feel better in their bodies, in their lives, in their minds.
Are you working like one-on-one, or are you still having the retreats, or how do you usually work?
Yeah, I still have one-on-one retreats and occasionally small group retreats working with 5-MeO-DMT or sexual healing and somatic therapy. And yeah, people have been actually coming down all the way down here to Peru. And generally, I work with the medicine in Central and South America, where the medicine is legal.
Because, yeah, so maybe we can actually reveal what's going to be your theme on this Non-Conformist Series.
Okay. So when I was asked to talk about real hacks for freedom, I would say that what's most important to me is working with the nervous system, because especially in these days with so much social media, so much going on in the world, our nervous systems easily get dysregulated. So this talk that I'm going to share is really specifically for anybody who experiences anxiety, depression, or for those, for the people that you love. You might want to share this talk with them. It's really essentially about how not to get hijacked by outside forces. Yeah, so that we can reclaim our mental and emotional health. So it's going to be a talk about the nervous system, psychedelics, somatics, and embodiment, and ways that you can find regulation, find calm in the midst of all this chaos.
This is really important, I think, for many people, and I can surely experience some of this as well in my everyday life. And what I just realized was that my physical like pains or aches or some unwell-being is like so totally connected to my anxiety or stress. Because we just like not even a month ago, we just came back from Mexico after this year's Anarchapulco. And probably you and some other people have experienced that when we are kind of away, even if we are working, it's like very kind of narrow thing. Even if many things are happening like at Anarchapulco, but the task is very, very precise and it's kind of very clear because the focus is very clear. And when I am back in my everyday life in Norway. And I just immediately could feel this. Why is my back hurting again? Why is this tension in the shoulders back again? Wow, why didn't I have it, in Mexico? And I had it before we left, and it was so like very kind of nice to get aware of that this physical things are so connected, but also so kind of not scary maybe, but a bit sad, that imagining that if I had gone to my doctor, family doctor, as we call it here, and I would talk about this pain, I'm sure that I would have been sent, to do some research on, okay, what's wrong with my back and blah, blah, blah. And in the end, I'm sure they probably would even see something, physically wrong, but they would not connect this emotional and nervous system connection to the actual pain. And this is something so important to know. And I know maybe you can share with us, like with the people that you work, what do you see? Is there some kind of not trend, but some kind of like what the people have in common that have started to work with this? Is there something that that you could see this thread through the people that are coming to you?
Yeah, not only in with the people that I work with, but with myself too. And you were describing so perfectly, the way somatics works. It's like when we imagine something that might be scary, there are chemicals and hormones that are stress hormones that are released into our system. And so that can put us on a high state of anxiety. And then what you're talking about, it's like, oh, I feel nervous and it makes, we feel sick to our stomach, or, oh, it's a pain in the neck. Well, what is it, or on the shoulder, the shoulders, like what is the responsibility happening? So there's, even in Chinese medicine, there was a relationship between the organs and different emotions. And so when we work with somatics and with the people that I work with, I've seen many people resolve gut issues, digestion issues, pains, aches and pains in the body, because it's absolutely connected to our emotions, which is connected to our nervous system. So the more that we can release what I like to call trapped survival energy, which is another name for trauma, the more that we can release that from the system, the more ease we can find in life, So there's such a connection between the physical body and how we feel, mental, emotional, our perspective on life, even the way that we see life. Do we see it as something joyful or something threatening? So a lot of that has to do with our past experiences, or what we're holding, what's trapped in our system. So somatics and psychedelics are amazing for helping us to release this, purge it from our system so we can find better health.
And are you still working with this 5-MeO molecule?
Yes.
This is
one of the most powerful
best
molecules on the planet. Yes.
Yes, and what also Anarchapulco offers are those different journeys, like psychedelic journeys, during or before or after. And I can tell that if not for the Anarchapulco retreats with different psychedelics, I am quite sure that me and my partner, we wouldn't be together anymore, because this is some kind of thing that really helps also, like not only to understand oneself, but also the people around us. what I experienced, and that you have also mentioned some other places, and maybe you want to talk a bit more about this, is like this safe environment. You know, that there is this, like, for example, if it's you on your retreat or in general, like this facilitator, like that really has explained, has informed, and is keeping, you know, during the process, is keeping this safe space. And could you talk about this, how important it is, or how have you experienced it? I also have heard some of the people that have been working with you talking about this, that you help them feel so safe and taken care of, that they actually can release, you know, and can allow themselves to surrender to the medicine, because very often it can also be one's mind that is really in the way, you know, and not letting to really surrender and let the medicine do its thing. Could you tell maybe a bit more about this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Safe space, safe set and setting. And also what I would like to add to that is really preparation. So especially with a molecule like 5-MeO-DMT, it is essentially an ego death, right? There is, you said the word surrender, and that's absolutely so important for us to be able to surrender to the experience, or we could go into panic, or we could even block the experience, right? So it's really important for me to work with people before a session, before working with the medicine, to really look at, you know, what is your relationship with death? What is your relationship with surrender? And these aren't just in relationship to working with the medicine, but in life in general, right? Like whatever happens within the ceremony, you can also apply to all aspects of one's life. So yeah, it's really important to have a good relationship with your facilitator, to feel safe to ask questions, to really know their background as well, you know, what their experience is. And yeah, just for that there's a really good resonance between the participants and the facilitator. And then so in regards, you know, since we're talking about safety, and also I would like to say effectiveness, right? So we can have these experiences, but it could just be a big mystical experience, a peak experience. And if we don't really integrate the experience, it can all just kind of go away. So we think that we have these big insights and we totally understand, we figured out everything, you know, all of our intentions for working with the medicine have been met. And then, you know, a few weeks later, a few months later, people are back into the same old patterns, right? So that's where somatics comes in, and really becoming the person that you want to be, to really anchor in and rewire the nervous system and the belief systems, right? So yeah, safety, integration, preparation, and presence, you know, so that we can really embody the experience once we've had it. We can really bring it into our life. Yeah.
Is there some suggestions you could give during this talk to the people that have experienced something and have reached this peak, and how, I don't know, one suggestion, how they can be aware of integrating this knowledge or experience or awareness?
Yeah. So imagining what it was like when you were in that peak experience, on different levels of, on different channels of awareness. So being able to imagine it, remember what the beliefs or the thoughts that came in, the awarenesses, bringing back the emotion and the sensation so that we can really rewire, anchor that experience. So if you can recall that on the different levels of awareness, the way that we perceive information, we have a better chance of anchoring it in and having true change instead of just a little bit of relief or a really cool experience.
Yes, because if it's just like a really cool experience and then just during the session there is this possibility to feel totally free, isn't it? Is it actually possible to get dependent on 5-MeO?
I don't I mean, sure, there's
Or
somebody
addicted?
out there. There's somebody out there who probably just wants to. Yeah, actually, I will say I have met some other facilitators who really believe that doing like a little bit of 5-MeO every day for 30 days is what's going to like bring some kind of enlightenment. And so I do know people who have done that, and that could be a bit possibly a little bit of an abuse, because it's like instead of just having the experience like we were talking about, we want to integrate it, right? But so yeah, there could be some people who just want to chase that peak experience. But chemically speaking, biochemically speaking, it's not addictive at all. Nah.
Because during this year's Anarchapulco, I'm the manager of the family camp, and there were some kids that expressed this. I would really like to try something like this, and then I was like, okay. Then I was thinking, yeah, what would you say? Like, is there age that is definitely not for these kind of things, or if there is age that okay, from this age, because teenagers, they are trying different things, and if we are not kind of facilitating that for them, they're going to try it somewhere else. Well, what would you advise in these kind of situations?
That's a really good question. I mean, I'm not into setting an idea of like at this age, this is legal or something, right? Like the system does. I think it would probably be on an individual basis. And I think it would be really beautiful for the parents to be there, for the guardians to be there. When Gopal, who's my stepson, now he's 30 years old, but when he was 16, he wanted to try ayahuasca with us. And so we did 3 nights of ayahuasca with him, and we approached it as this is like an initiation. This is like a step towards adulthood. And we really held him within this experience. So I think that's really important. I would definitely, especially with 5-MeO DMT, advise any parents or guardians to really educate the children about what that is, because it's a big experience. And it's something that if you're not prepared for and you don't have the integration, people can kind of have a difficult time reintegrating back into life, so probably I don't know that I could say there's a particular age. That would really be something I think to discuss with your children, but to impress upon them what a big shift that is. And, maybe if I guess they could just be curious, to have that kind of experience. And there could be situations where, there's been a lot of trauma and it actually might be a useful approach in very low doses, I would say. I don't know if that answers the question. It's not, I don't know the answer.
At least in a way. Is this in general for everybody? Is 5-MeO something that anyone could use, or is there some cases where it's not wise?
Absolutely. If anybody's ever had has had schizophrenia or has ever had a psychotic break, if they're on antidepressants or a lot of other kinds of medicines, it's a contraindication. It could provoke another psychotic episode, So also bipolar is under that category of what do you call it, of contraindications. And I am just going to say that I was diagnosed as bipolar at the age of 14. I had experienced a lot of trauma starting basically from the womb and throughout my whole early years. And so at around 12 years old, I started having headaches every single day. And this goes back to what we were talking about with, the body and emotions and physical ailments. So by the time I was 14, they diagnosed me as what they called back then as manic depression. Now we call it bipolar. And the thing is that at that point, nobody ever said, what happened? Nobody ever asked what happened. Trauma wasn't really talked about back then. And I was put on antidepressants for my entire teenage years. I was drugged up. I was on antidepressants and pain pills. And so going back to what you asked me about, is it not for some people? It is contraindicated bipolar, but I did 5-MeO-DMT for the very first time at the age about 20, 21, just by a gift from the divine. It crossed my path. And I think it really, really helped me. Psychedelics really helped me. I met also ayahuasca during this time, and it really helped me to work out a lot of trauma. So again, I would say it would come to a case-by-case basis because it did help me. I'm not dealing with the same kinds of issues at all as I was back then. That depression is not there anymore. So it's a case-by-case basis. I think, maybe for something like that, it would take a lot more preparation and really also having, other people on board for support that could be there in case it was necessary. Yeah. So psychosis is a little bit different. Schizophrenia is a little bit different. Definitely certain medicines you can't take at the same time. They'll just kill you. But it does incredible work for healing trauma. And so, I think that said, like when I was diagnosed as bipolar, that was pathologizing. Just like when you were talking about earlier about if you went with this ache or pain to the doctor, they would just give you a pill. Well, that's what they did to me. They just gave me a pill, and didn't look into the deeper roots of what was happening.
Yes, unfortunately, it's still happening. I mean, we have cases around when the kids are starting to, for example, have awful headaches, and nobody knows why. Parents cannot explain it. Doctors are saying, yeah, that's what happens. But then there is, at least in me, it's the immediately discussion. Okay, why it happened? Okay, and if it's common, why is it common for those kids? And this is really sad that it's still so little help to get. Like if one chooses to go the ordinary path, despite there are so many research and so many great people out there and talking about different things and how everything is related. But thanks to you and some other or many other people that are also working differently. There is a chance. And like talking about trauma. So you have had some trauma. I have had some trauma, since the childhood, and I am sure that me being a mom, I have caused some trauma already to my kids. Of course, unwillingly, as my parents did to me. I mean, differently, not the same way, but so I'm sure there is something. And if you would, address like parents that are watching right now and being conscious about, that definitely there is some kind of trauma, probably small, but still, probably it is something to do like with the medical doctor experience, like being held by taking the blood test or something, at a small age. That can be very traumatic experience. And as you have mentioned, other places, even in this cellular level. So that is, it is sitting there, even like if consciously we don't recognize it, we are not aware of it, it can be sitting there. And is there something that I as a parent can do to, I don't know, make it easier, make it visible, or whatever healing kind of work on this?
That's a big subject. It's a really good question. Well, first I was going to say, when you were speaking before, I just wrote myself a little note. I heard you say that the parents caused trauma, and a little bell went off for me, because with trauma, it's not what happens, it's how we respond. Right? So if we don't have if something happens, we feel threatened, and we want to fight or we want to take flight, and we can't, right? And we just freeze. That's when the experience gets stuck in the system. So maybe as parents, if you really allow the child to act out whatever it is that, like if something happens, some conflict or what, and they want to fight about it, like creating a good environment for them to express their emotion, express their anger, not at somebody, but to at least be able to move it through so it's not getting stuck, because that's when it becomes a trauma. I hope that makes sense. So, yes, and then also, yeah, so the parents aren't necessarily causing trauma. We are all sovereign individuals, right? But if you can create the environment for the child to be able to act out in a healthy way, to express, to also teach them emotional intelligence, which is something that I want to talk about as well in the speech on the summit, is we're not trained to be able to identify emotions. We weren't taught that, right? I might ask somebody, "Hey, how's it going?" "Oh, I'm fine," or people say, "I feel like," well, that's not identifying emotions. The more that we can identify our emotions, the more that awareness we have of them, the more ability we have to be able to express and be embodied, and to let go of all that stuff that's not serving us or filling us up with something that's somebody else's idea, somebody else's emotion. So I would say, as parents, teach your children how to identify their feelings. Make it safe for them to express anger, because it's such an emotion that's been suppressed. There's so much conditioning specifically around anger, I would say. And when we repress things, we get depressed. So we want to express.
Yes, about this, somebody asking, "Are you okay? How are you doing?" Yes, I'm just fine. Yes. And I had this one colleague, she was, going through her own healing and stuff, and she often said, "Really? Really? Are you really okay?" And it was at the same time nice and also scary. And she was asking like this, because then it was like, yeah. But yeah, in our everyday life, it is, I can notice that it is, it can be challenging, to even if we recognize something, like, for example, I wake up and I'm grumpy, I can identify the feeling, emotion, like, and then I'm like, why? why? And then the worst thing is when I don't find the reason, I don't see it. And then they're this self doped and self kind of being hushed to myself and saying like, what is it? Why can't you be happy? Like there's no objective reason why you should be grumpy, And what would you say about these kind of situations when you can identify the emotion, but you have no idea why is it there? You cannot, see okay, why is it this? Why I feel like this?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing that comes to me when you ask that question is that emotions get trapped in the body, like I was speaking about before. Mm-hmm. And then there could be something that triggers it, something that is something maybe that happened that was a little bit similar to something that happened when that emotion got trapped, right? So there's things are coupled with the past. And the more that we ask ourselves why, it's not really going to help so much, really trying to identify the why. It's more about just giving yourself permission to feel. How can you express it? How can you let it move through so it doesn't stay stuck, right? So why is not going to help us as much. It's really just getting stuck in the mind, right? And what I want to inspire people to do more is to really be in the body, getting out of the head and into the body, right? So the mind's not going to help. The mind is useful for some things, but understanding the emotions or the why, it's not really that important. Like when I do somatic therapy with people, we don't need to know the story so much. We don't need to know the why. It's really just working with whatever is present in the body right now and allowing it to move through. And most of the time, there will be a tremendous sense of relief after a purge of that grumpy or whatever that experience was, But we don't want to judge it. We don't want to prevent ourselves from just being embodied, expressing. Life isn't always, we don't always feel great, but we don't have to stay stuck in anxiety or fear or worry, if we allow ourselves to feel. And sometimes that is allowing ourselves to feel more pleasure, more joy. Because for some of us, it doesn't really feel comfortable. We're not really it's like we're more used to feeling fear, anxiety, and worry. That just feels like the autopilot. That's normal. Or grumpy. So sometimes we have to practice feeling the joy, feeling the pleasure, and making more space in our nervous system for that.
Yeah, definitely. Me and my daughter, we were, doing some blood tests, and there were these hospital clowns. They were so amazing. That was the first time I actually met one, or they were two clowns. Mm-hmm. They were so adorable. Like just for example, telling, "Oh, I have a message to you. I have a message to you. I wrote it on this card," and then they gave it to us, and it was written message. That was the message. like as easy as this, and it really can help to just make things easier and more simple. But if if this grumpiness, for example, in oneself or in the kids is present, how can we be present in a feeling? But sometimes we cannot just, okay, I have some stuff I have to deal with. I want to be on my own, and I just want to close the door and and just allow myself to be there. But sometimes we really have to be among the people, at least our family, and what is the healthy kind of boundaries, or how do we do it, like allowing ourselves to be there, but at the same time not, overstepping other people's boundaries, not letting it kind of out on our kids or friends, or the closest family is usually the one who gets to feel
Right.
the hard stuff.
Yeah. Well, if we have to just jump back into our lives and we have to be making, food for the family and doing the things and we're feeling grumpy, it really doesn't take that much time to just set aside, say, 5 minutes to just go stand on the earth and make some sound. Sound movement integration is also one of the practices that I bring into my work. Helping people to bring sound with movement. So what does grumpy look like? What does grumpy sound like? Can you even exaggerate it? And if you start to play with something like this, you'll probably crack yourself up. You'll be able to release it and move the energy. Right. So 5 minutes. And then also everything, the grumpy or the depressed or all those things aren't always just emotions. It could be not getting enough sun, not sitting on the earth enough, not, being on the computer too much, our diet, things like that too are also important factors that I don't want to neglect to mention. But yeah, you could just take 5 minutes away to go express. And very few people do this. Very few people do this. And when I work in my private practice with people, it is very edgy for them to express, well, what does anger look like, right? It's very hard for people to, in the beginning, it's very hard. People are very self-conscious. But as people start to get used to and accepting themselves in this and allowing themselves to be embodied, because we're talking about embodiment, right? As people allow themselves to do that, it just gets easier. It gets easier. And we know like, oh, okay, I need to just take a time out, just like we give the kids, take a time out and go do it. 5 minutes is not going to, you're not going to neglect all your duties if you just take 5 minutes out.
Thank you so much. This is like a really easy thing to do, actually. So that can be really helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to mention really moving the body. If I didn't impress that, or one of my favorite practices is when I work with groups is like, how about making the ugliest face that you can, like with your partner. Try it out if you're in a couple and just demonstrate the ugliest face that you could make, and bring some sound and some movement into it. It really helps to shift and move energy. I don't know if it's my favorite practice. It's just one of many, many, many that I like to bring in, but try it out. I dare you.
Yeah, especially when we are fighting. It could be, great to do that.
Yes.
To express like, oh, how I hate you right now. Mm-hmm. This is how you look to me right now.
That's a beautiful practice. Yeah, if there's enough safety and safety within the relationship to do that, that's a beautiful practice. Or it looks like you're like, like showing each other, reflecting back. It can be so much fun, right?
Yeah, this is actually maybe I just occurred to me. This is why especially kids, they cannot show this middle finger, and when they are angry, they just show this middle finger, and then they're like, yes, that's what you get from me. I know that I'm not allowed to do it, but that's how I feel, kind of. But probably if they were, if they could see that we adults make some weird faces when we are upset and angry, then there would be more expression than just one middle finger stuff.
Right. And what you just said, something that reminds me of, children process emotions really quickly. Like if you see a child having a temper tantrum and then like 2 minutes later, they're laughing, right? They just,
Yeah, especially.
if they're allowed, they're not inhibiting their expression. But
like,
not all children
5 minutes of tantrum, and then suddenly, oh, look at this butterfly. It's so beautiful. What happened?
Exactly. Yep.
Yes. Okay, our time is getting to an end for today. I'm really excited to listen to you on the Non-Conformist series. And before we say goodbye to our people watching us right now, is there something that you would wish to tell, to remind?
Don't miss the summit. Come to Anarchapulco and express yourself. I dare you all to just take a moment today to go outside where you feel safe and just express some of the emotions that are present in your body and see how it feels just for a minute, because very rarely do we do that, right? We're always like so composed, keeping it together. And, just try having a temper tantrum for a minute. Let the voice open and just use the whole body. Try that out and then come to my talk.
Great. Really. Thank you so much for being here today. It was really interesting talking to you. And I have still like a list of questions, but some other time for that.
All right.
Yes. So, guys, I also encourage you to join to the Non-Conformist series. Go to anarchapulco.com and check out all the other speakers as well. And keep following the Conversations in Anarchy. We're going to be talking to several speakers of the series in the future weeks. And otherwise, thank you for watching us, and peace, love, and anarchy, guys. See you. Bye.